So let's go ahead and look at the first piecewise function. So if you look at this is a piecewise function. Why? Because there's an equation 1 and there is an equation 2. There are two different equations based on what is the input. So this is just an introduction to piecewise function, showing you how you have two different equations based on the input. So what they want us to do is they just want us to evaluate the function. When you say evaluate, that means solving for y, solving for f of x, depending on the value of the input, depending on the x. When x equals to 0, so how do you evaluate a function? You take the x value that they're providing and substitute it in the equation and give me the y value, correct? That's how you evaluate, right? But in this case, there are two equations. So which equation would you use? What do you think I'm going to use when they say x equals to 0? X equals to 0 is less than 2, so it's going to be equation 1. Perfect, good answer. You will use equation 1, substitute for x equals to 0 here. 0 plus 2, 2. We're good? Alright, can we all do the same thing for B and C? Evaluate this function when x equals to 2. You first have to see which of my two equations am I going to use, and then calculate for your y. Which of, yeah, go ahead. So here I have to use equation 2. Everybody good? Because x equals to 2. X equals to 2 is dicey because you see 2 in both the places, but this is the one that says equal to 2. So this would be equation 2. And this is obviously equation 2 because x equals to 4 greater than 2. So it's 2 times 4, 8 plus 1, 9. Everybody okay? Yeah, so basically your output, you'll decide on which equation to use depending on. So even if you're talking about the whole the t-shirt experience, depending on how many t-shirts you ordered, you'll do if you want to calculate how much am I going to pay, you'll base it on whether does it fall between 0 and 50 t-shirts or 50 to 100. So you'll base it on that. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to graph. So right now we only learn to evaluate, but right now we're going to learn to graph. Again, if you notice, piecewise function. Why? Because I have two different functions. Function 1, function 2, equation. I shouldn't say function. There's only one function, but it has two equations based on the input that is being provided. So all values of x less than equal to 1. The equation is 2x minus 1. All values of x greater than 1, I am using 3x plus 1. Okay, and then what is our goal? Our goal is to graph this. So there are two linear equations. Normally when you graph a linear equation, you don't create a table, right? You just you go to y equals mx plus b. You go to b, from b you calculate the slope. But in case when a linear equation or a quadratic or any of these is a part of a piecewise, you normally don't do that. What you do is you actually create a table, because you are restricted by the x value, so you want to draw that line only for specific x values. So instead of drawing a line for the entire graph, you restrict it. So what you do is you actually create a table. So you notice for this piecewise function there are two tables being given. The first table is for 2x minus 1, equation 1. And the second table is for equation 2. Okay, so let's look at equation 1. Equation 1 is 2x minus 1, right? For me to be able to graph, I want to take at least maybe 3 values, 2 to 3 values. So for me to graph this, for all values of x less than equal to 1, what x values do you think I'll take? Shall I start with 1? And then less than 1. So I'll go from 1 to 0 to negative 1. Okay, can we all calculate this based on these three values? So the y is basically 2x minus 1. So 2 times 1 minus, yeah, go ahead and finish it. Go ahead and finish the other two too. work. Did we all get these values?
Yes.
When you substitute for 0 and -1? Awesome. Okay, now let's go ahead and graph this. So, when x equals to 1, y equals to 1. When x equals to 0, y equals to -1. When x equals to -1, y equals to 3. And then it continues. Okay, I can continue doing it because it's all values of x less than 1. So I will draw my line in this direction. Everybody okay? So at the end of this line, x equals to 1. This all values of x less than equal to 1. That means 1 is included, correct? When something is included on a number line, you put that as a closed circle. So the end, generally it is good to have either an open circle or a closed circle. So you want, because you want to know is that value included or not. Okay, we're going to do the same for equation 2 because now we have to draw another line. It says for all values of x greater than 1, use this equation. X greater than 1. So what do you think you should start with?
2.
Okay, so I'm getting one answer, 2. Anybody else? She says I should start with 1. Do you know why? Perfect. And she's absolutely right. You want to start with 1 because if you start with 2, what happens to the values between 1 and 2? It says greater than 1. Greater than 1 is also 1.01. It's 1.2, 1.5. So you want to include those values. So you want to start with 1. So please keep this in mind. You want to start with 1, except 1 will become a closed circle. So that's why I talked about open and closed. So this is a closed open circle, and this will be a closed circle. So when you make your table, just put a closed or open circle at the end of it, which is where it ends. And then let's do the calculation. And it's greater than 1, so now I can go up. I can do 1, 2, and 3. Even two numbers is enough, but I'm just going to take 3. Can we solve for our y, which is 3x plus 1 based on 1, 2, and 3? I didn't even mark 3, 10 just because it's kind of going outside the graph. So 2 points is enough for linear. So this is how my graph is going to look like. This is how my graph is going to look like. Please let me know if you are unsure about how I did this. Okay. Then it asks for domain, range, and it tells you to evaluate. Let's talk about domain and range. Domain basically means you want to read the x values starting from the lowest to the highest, right? So lowest x value, it's going on forever in this direction. That means all negative values of x will be covered. There's no restriction. So I can start with negative infinity. I can start with negative infinity. Okay, I'm going to continue running my pen or pencil on the x-axis. So it starts at negative infinity, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. All the values of x are covered. It does stop at 1. But what happens after 1? There is a second equation. I jump up and there's actually no break in x. There's actually no break in x. At x equals to 1, the next equation starts right after 1. It starts at 1.0001. So there's no break in the x value itself. It goes, and this one picks up. That means it goes up to positive infinity. Can everybody see how there is no break on the x-axis? Because one equation stops and the second one picks up right away. Okay. I'd like you guys to give a range a shot. Range is a little more. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
What if there is a break?
Yes, and that's in range. So I want you to take a look at range. Range, so I'm telling you right ahead that there is a break in range. So run your pen or pencil from the lowest y value and keep going up. It does stop, and the range does not pick up till this point. You see this part of y-axis has a break. The graph does not cover this portion. So I want you to see how you can write this down. So you will actually write it as two parts with a union in between. So give it a shot. Just give it a shot. I'm going to follow it up in 30 seconds, but I want you to think about it. Okay, so this is your range. Can we all take a look at it and tell me if you understood what I wrote down? There is a gap between between x equals to 1, y equals to 1 and y equals to 4. The graph doesn't cover it. So that's why it stops at 1, picks up at 4. At 1, it's a bracket because 1 is included. 4 is a parenthesis because 4 is not included. Chloe, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Anyone else? If we did okay, yes, yeah.
Why is there not a bracket
For this one?
Yeah.
Because look at this, it has got the range is to be written in two parts. It starts from negative infinity, it actually stops here.
Okay.
And then it does not start till y equals to 4. So I have to give it a break and start another minimum maximum value. Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Anybody else about the range? So range is a little different because there is a break. Okay. If you're okay with domain and range, can we all do evaluate? There are three values to be evaluated. F of 1, f of negative 2, f of 4. Again, same thing. When you're evaluating piecewise function, depending on the input value, you go to the appropriate equation. If f equals to 1, you will go to equation 1 because values of x less than equal to 1. So this is equation 1. Okay, go ahead and finish all three. I'll put up the answers and you guys ask me questions if what you write down is different. Okay, I put down all the three answers. I've also said which equation I've used. Please take a look to see if you understood and you got it right. Everybody okay? We're going to go to the next graph, graph 3, if everybody's okay. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. It is a piecewise function. It has got two equations. For you to graph it, you will create two tables. I will follow you. Why don't you guys start? I will do hand holding. And number 4, I'd like you to work independently, but I'm going to work on 3 with you. So start by creating two tables. One table for equation 1 for all values of x less than 1. Then equation 2, all values of x greater than equal to 1. Yes. Yeah, here you go. Okay, let's, some of you may have started graphing, which is great, but just make sure I just put the table up, the two tables. The first table for 1, 0, -1, because values x less than 1, and the second one for values greater than x greater than equal to 1, 1, 2, and 3. I've taken, one is an open circle, one is a closed circle. Okay, now you can go ahead and graph it. Three over 2 is nothing but 1.5. So this is your equation 1. And let's do equation 2. So you notice equation 2, the x equals to 1 overlaps, right? So x equals to 1 is 2 again. And this is a closed circle. So obviously closed circle overrides the open circle. Closed circle overrides the open circle. And then x equals to 2 is 1. X equals to 3 is 0. This is equation 2. Everybody okay? And once you've got this, can you please answer the question for domain, range? Let's go ahead and do this, and also do all the evaluation. And then we'll move to the next graph. Give you guys a minute or two to finish that. Please let me know. I put up the answers for everything. Domain, range. I feel it's fairly straightforward, the domain and range. There's no break anywhere. But again, if your answer is different, please ask. Don't be shy. Please speak up. And then I put the evaluate 2. First 2 use equation 1, then uses equation 2. So please let me know it's incorrect.